So, welcome back to Active Ingredients, the leadership series for people who build, scale, and shape the future of life sciences. I'm your host, Tom Dove, founder and CEO of Fraser Dove International, the life sciences talent consultancy. Today's guest is Yariv Hefez, a global biotech and oncology leader whose career started in law before moving into business development and eventually stepping into full commercial and P&L leadership, leading and scaling a €2 billion global oncology franchise. Along the way, he's built businesses from scratch, turned around assets, and led global teams in over 60 markets. But what makes Yariv's story so good is the mindset behind it, a belief that careers aren't mapped, they're created through action, risk, and taking opportunities when others won't. In this episode, we'll explore how to reinvent, how to build and scale global teams, and why the best leaders get in the driving seat. Yariv, welcome to Active Ingredients.
Thank you for having me.
No problem, no problem. So this I'm very excited about. You've got a really interesting story in all of the conversations, the icebreakers, the debates we've had. I've been really excited to get this episode launched and live. So let's get started. What do you believe are the three key ingredients of a successful leader and why?
So for me, I think there's like three key ingredients. The first one is clarity. Clarity is the ability to see and to make decisions without having the complete information. And throughout my career, I was many times requested to make decisions without having complete data. And the ability to move forward without this data is key. The second one is momentum. Large organizations have many smart people and things still don't happen. And it's not because they don't have the talent. It's because of heavy processes, hesitation, and the role of the leader is really to create this energy, this drive in order to make things happen. And the last one, and maybe the most important one, for me at least, is people. And I'm not talking only about recruiting the right people, but actually bringing on people who not necessarily agree with you. You want to create this diversity of opinion. You don't want to surround yourself with people who just agree. You want to create healthy tension, because from this type of tension comes the best decisions. So for me, these are the three key ingredients, right? So we talked about clarity, momentum, and people.
Love it. Yeah. Momentum, it's the first time that that's been used so far in all of the episodes that I've had. And I really like that knowledge that you've got of large pharma, the political elements that can sometimes slow that down. And then you're obviously aware of your energy and your drive to actually make things happen. But the people piece, a lot of the answers that I've had so far are like, create a team of great people, but not always diversity of opinion and actually seeking out tension and people that are saying the opposite to what you're thinking. So I'm obviously these are going to be mapped out throughout the conversation that we have today. So I'm interested to come back to clarity, momentum, and people. But let's talk about you when you were kind of growing up or pre-university, post-university. Was there any direction posts or were there any signs that said that you would maybe go into a career in life sciences?
No, I don't think, there was a defining moment, right? For me, it was always this simple idea, the wish to create impact. So this took me to law school and afterwards to business school. So at the end of the day, life science was not really the goal. The goal was to create impact on people's life. And this is something that really kind of drove me throughout my career, this wish to have this impact.
Yeah. And when you were kind of before going on the law track, was there anything like leadership qualities from a young age where people were like, hey, that guy's up to something cool?
Yeah, I don't know if there's like a defining moment, right? I think one key moment that I really remember is an early conversation with my mother. I think maybe I was in third, fourth grade. And she told me something that really stayed with me. She told me that, there is nothing you can't achieve if you put your mind to it. And this kind of way of thinking created with me the ownership and the mindset that drove me throughout my career. So this is kind of one thing I think of early life. This is something that I really keep with me.
Yeah, I love it. So then you went into law school. Okay. What was that journey like?
So, I went to law school and then I joined a big firm. But then, after a few years there, then I decided that I'm actually going to leave this comfortable environment and open my own business with a partner. And this was my first entrepreneurial experience. And it taught me, something, because it was not anymore just about doing the work like in the law firm, right? It was about building a business, taking risks, making decisions, right? And this is something, kind of a mindset that stayed with me throughout my career.
Yeah, love that. And was there like a catalyst moment where you went, do you know what? Maybe I can't work for somebody. I need to go and do this on my own. Was there a moment that sparked it?
No, I don't think there was a moment. I think that there was this, again, ambition for the impact thing, which, as I said, this was a key driver in many of the decisions. And I think this was also one decision that was driven by that. I felt that with my partner, we can drive more impact, take more interesting cases than, being handed up things in a large law firm.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So it's a bit of a, you know, different start to a career to most life sciences leaders that then have gone on to take the career that you've done in life sciences. So, you've gone through maybe slightly different education, then you've gone and worked for a large law firm, then the entrepreneurial mindset's kicked in and you've gone and started your own thing. So what actually was the moment where you wanted to switch lanes entirely and start to build your career as a biotech exec?
So again, I think here the moment was when I realized that I enjoyed much more the building and the managing of the business than the actual legal work. And this was, if you want, this moment when I said, okay, I want to go to business school. And I went and joined the IMD in Switzerland uh, in order to make this kind of management experience more professional. And this was the point, right? And then I found myself in a pharma company, starting in business development, alliance management, and then moved on.
Yeah, and how do you think your legal background shaped, I suppose, how maybe you negotiate or lead or make decisions in that environment?
Yeah, I think it is a combination of the legal experience and the entrepreneurial experience. Because as a lawyer, you learn how to negotiate, how to think quickly, how to deal with difficult, tense situations. And as entrepreneur, you are really about learning how to build a business, how to take risks, how to maybe turn decisions into action. And this combination of the thinking and the doing is where I think I got my leadership seed, if you want.
Yeah, nice. And I suppose the transition from legal to BD to business development, and then from business development to general management, what transition challenged you the most, do you think?
Yeah, I think it was really the transition from business development to global product leadership and P&L responsibility.
Yeah, okay.
Because As a lawyer, as someone who does business development, it's really about focusing on doing a deal and moving on. Whereas when you are leading a global product in a business, it's really about making the impact to other people, right? It's about making things happen through others, through a big cross-functional team. And it's also about living with the decisions that you make on the long term. So it's really the difference, if you want, from kind of short-term execution to long-term ownership.
Yeah, and you and I have spoken about one of the catalysts of this being able to make that shift, being the trust that you were able to build. How did you build that trust moving from single contributor type role into the P&L leadership?
So I think the way I did it was really being very open and upfront about the fact that I don't have all the answers. And very early on, when I took over the role in the global leadership team, I organized a 2-day offsite with a very large, broad, cross-functional team and discussed very openly with the team what works, what doesn't work, what needs to change, right? And this built a very nice change in the mindset of the team, because from that moment on, it was no longer kind of a Yariv strategy, right? It was our strategy. And this builds ownership with the team and also builds trust. And this, I think, helped me very much to kickstart the turnaround that I was looking to make.
Yeah, fantastic. So you were able to kind of build the trust and also work on full scale change mindset, change management within that team, just through being more open, better communication. So after that 2 days, could you kind of feel the energy and the change and the shift in mindset?
Yeah, I mean, you know how it goes, right? You go to an offsite, there's great feelings, and then, reality kicks back again, right? So it's not that, you have this moment, this event, and it creates a start of a momentum, but then you have to keep going, right? You have to nourish that. And one of the ways to nourish that is to implement this concept of co-creation as something that is an ongoing motive in building the strategy, on working on the tactics with the markets. And this co-creation continues to install the sense of ownership in the teams. And at the end of the day, creates this buy-in that leads to a seamless execution.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I love that. So in your career, though, you've obviously gone on this kind of entrepreneurial journey. You've then moved into BD, you've gone P&L, ownership, you've built from scratch. What is harder? Because you've done quite a lot of build, you've done a lot of turnaround. What's harder? Launching from zero or reversing some sort of decline?
Yeah, I think that the turnaround is more challenging than a launch. And the reason I say that is because when you're turning around a business, it's not only that you have to deal with the external market dynamics, but you also have to deal with the organizational mindset. So when you have a mature product and you have to turn it around and it's not doing that great, the organization already lost belief many times in the product. There is this mindset and preconceived idea about the product. When you are going into a launch, everybody is excited. High energy, plenty of resources, momentum, you build a team, you build a strategy, right? So everything is geared to success. So at the end of the day, when you are in a turnaround, it's not only about fixing the business, but it's also about shaping and changing the way people think about the business.
Yeah. And I mean, you did well. So what was it, kind of 500 million at one point? You took it
It
to
was a
over
bit
a
more,
billion.
was about 650, 700, but then over a period of about 4 or 5 years, we got to more than a blockbuster status. So it was a big change.
Yeah. So you've got that kind of preconceived idea of a product. Can you talk a bit more about how you worked on creating the belief that the product that was already shrinking could change and could do that?
So I think it was really about having a different perspective, right? You have to come to look at things with a different lens. You have to identify the potential growth driver points. And in this case was really about the fact that we did not leverage the key points of differentiation, right? So I realized the product was highly differentiated, but we did not focus on the right differentiation. So this is one element. The second element is also working on the mindset and the framework. So if you want to treat a turnaround, and this is the way I look at it, as a launch, you have to give it the same energy, drive, focus that you give a launch. Because if you approach it like a declining product, you already lost. But if you come with this energy of a new launch, you have a very good chances of success.
And was there a certain like turning point for you where you went, okay, cool, we've got this, the momentum has changed? Was there a moment where you actually kind of believed it?
Yeah, I think the key moment was really the moment when I realized that we were not focusing on the right differentiation. So the product was highly differentiated. We did not focus on the right differentiation. And again, I link this maybe to the co-creation element, because when I noticed this, I again brought the team together to co-create a strategy on how are we going to change our approach in order to promote differently and use different strategy and tactics with the markets, and then worked with them together on this seamless execution of making it happen.
Yeah, I love that. And what about looking at the other part of the business where you were given almost a blank sheet and then you were able to create something quite spectacular that was kind of real build from scratch? What was different about that? How did you create that? What separates leaders, I suppose, that can be part of that journey?
Yeah, I mean, the way I look at it is maybe if you want a scaling versus maintaining leader, right? So I think as a what you want like a scaling leader needs to challenge the status quo, needs to come with a fresh set of eyes, needs to build a team that is willing to debate, willing to challenge, willing to push back, right? This is kind of the energy that you need for this, the mindset that you need for that. When you are looking at people that are more in the maintenance stage, right? It's more about optimizing. It's about creating teams that are more aligned, that spend a lot of time on the existing elements. So if you want, it's about one leader is focusing on really driving change, whereas the other is about maintaining the status quo.
Yeah. And then you've been, you know, looking at this kind of now you've got a good view on it and being able to look at building something from scratch, you know, the decline and then the turnaround. What was more rewarding for you out of those two elements of your career?
I enjoyed both.
Yeah.
I really enjoy both. I think it's different energies. I think that, when I look at building from scratch, it's very rewarding because you have nothing And then, let's talk about the biosimilar business, right? The biosimilar business, we really started with nothing, right? We had a strategy, and then I led a series of global partnerships that created a portfolio and worked on growing this portfolio. At the end of the day, when the company decided to focus more on oncology, we also had an exit. So we sold the business for about 650 million euros. So this journey, if you want, in 3 years from zero, or 4 years from zero to 650 million, it's super rewarding because you are very clearly seeing your contribution. On the scaling, you still grow, right? We grew the franchise under my leadership from 1.4 billion to 2 billion. So it's maybe almost 50% growth over 3 years. But then the growth is much more complex. You have to drive significantly more different elements of the business, launching in new markets, launching a new product, preparing other launches, maximizing the existing portfolio, right? So it's a lot of building blocks that you have to put together in order to achieve that. So I think the complexity is different and the dynamic is a bit different, but both are rewarding.
Yeah. And you couldn't do it without people, without your ability to build diverse, high performing teams. So you and I have spoken before about the terminology you used was you wanted to stop hiring clones. Okay. So
Yes.
how or what does diversity really mean in your leadership model?
So for me, it's diversity is really a diversity in opinion and mindset and way of thinking, right? I mean, because if let's talk about how do you build a high performing team? A high performing team is not something that just happens, and I think that many other leaders, they underestimate the time, the effort, and the focus that it takes to build a high performing team. You have to focus on three elements for me. One is trust. You have to make sure that the team members trust you and trust each other. And for this, they have to spend time together in one-on-ones, in offsites, in many meetings to build this trust and get to know each other. The second one is to bring the right level of tension. And here you have to teach the team how to disagree openly, how to challenge each other, how to challenge me, how to challenge the status quo, because from this kind of tension, you get the best decisions. And the third element is having co-creating a vision and creating the alignment of the team around this vision. And once you have all those elements in place, this is where you get a team that is really over delivering.
Yeah. So would you say that one of the magic formulas then of creating that trust and tension is getting your team together more to have these debates and get to know each other better?
You have to, if you want, you have to create the atmosphere and the conditions for this to happen. This is not something that happens spontaneously. And I have spent a lot of time in this and very consciously on, incorporating a lot of offsite and spending time also out of work together, because this is the moments where people actually gel. It's very difficult to create this only in an office environment. And maybe to add here one thing, I'm thinking about a lot of other leaders and that they say, okay, we have a diverse team. So yes, people focus on, recruiting people from different nationalities or different religions or different genders, but still many times they are still looking for people who think like them. And for me, the moment that you are able to actually bring people who think differently, this is where you create the diversity of opinions, and this is the diversity of thinking that actually yields the real diversity that takes the business forward.
Yeah, because you were obviously seeking people that maybe didn't fit the mold, of what a normal person would come in and do. So, I mean, can you share any of your like big successes of where you've gone and taken someone who didn't fit the mold and what happened within your organization?
Yeah, I have a few examples. I think one example that stands out is when I brought a controller, so someone from the finance department, into a commercial marketing role. And this was something that was not very common. And the reason I did it was not based on the experience, but really based on the qualities of the person, right? The analytical skills, the ability to challenge status quo, the ability to think out of the box, and the rigor that they bring from the finance mentality and culture. And when you bring someone like that, and this was a young lady that I brought into the marketing team, it really worked well because she brought to the team a way of thinking and a way of approaching issues and challenges that was different than the way they did. So again, this created, if you want, a new way for the team to look at issues and find solutions and get better decisions.
So you're looking at the whole person and their mindset and the way they think and act rather than what they've done from a professional standpoint.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. So how do you ensure, um, or I suppose what's the right question? What mistakes do leaders make when they try to hire for diversity, I suppose?
Yeah, I think this is the moment what I mentioned a couple of moments ago. I mean, the fact that they go and they just recruit people that are different in terms of culture or gender or religion, right? Or nationality, but they are not necessarily looking for the people who think different. And I think this is the key element. The key element for diversity is that you have different approaches to look at the business world, to look at issues, to look at the world overall. And only when you have diversity of thinking is when you have real diversity. Otherwise, it's just diversity on paper.
So do you actually get quite excited if you're speaking to somebody and they're almost disagreeing with quite a lot that you're saying? Are you like, oh, this could be good. This could be a good fit for my team.
Absolutely. I think that, having, this fresh mindset and bringing people from different walks of life is something that is very enriching. But I think it's also important to be careful here, because if you're just going to pick people who think very differently from you, but you are not going to take the time to build a team, you're not going to put the energy and effort that it requires, you're actually going to create a chaos. So it has to be the two elements. And one is identifying the people who think differently, who could be these kind of wild cards, if you want, that bring a very interesting perception and dimension to the team. But on the other end, making sure that you are taking the time to build a team and integrate those things together.
And that is where, as you said earlier, it's that kind of the time to develop the people, but also the time to develop the trust, and then the time to understand them so that you're getting that level of tension correct and you're working with them to expect it and, embrace that tension to actually become better teammates, better leaders within your organizations.
It makes better leader in the organization. It also, I think, makes better decisions, because a lot of times you see teams where people are very respectful for the domain of their colleague. So, if I'm in HR, I talk about HR. When I'm in finance, I talk about finance. And I'm in marketing, I talk about marketing. But I'm not daring as an HR professional to challenge the marketing strategy, or as an HR professional to challenge the finance approach. But I want my team not to think functionally. I want them, of course, each one to present his function, but also I want them to be able to challenge each other's functions, because this is what leads the best decisions. Because people from other functions, they come with a new perspective and sometimes create a new way for you to look at your own business.
Yeah. that kind of curiosity, I suppose. It's like, why do you do things like that over there?
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
it's being able to say it in a respectful way where you're not getting an immediate reaction where somebody says, "Hey, you leave me alone. I'm an expert in this field." But it's more
Exactly.
like, yeah, I like that. So being able to create, as you said though, create that environment that is allowed to happen, and actually it's encouraged to happen more often.
Yeah. I mean, this is for me, this was a key success factor throughout my career in all the teams I built.
And another key thing, another key success factor for the teams that you've built is you've also helped them almost own their career path or help create and take opportunities within it. Because some people, they go into a career and they just kind of find themselves accidentally falling into roles. Your mantra, though, is very much create and take opportunities because careers aren't mapped. Can you talk a little bit more about self-direction and how you see that as a bit of an underrated leadership trait?
Yeah. So, first of all, I think self direction is something that when I look at my career was extremely instrumental, right? We talked about my ambition to have impact, and this ambition to have impact and the self direction were very instrumental in the roles I took. And to be very honest, if I look at my career, I don't think there is one role where I was 100% ready for the role. In most cases, I was maybe 50, 60% ready for the role. I brought my past experiences into the role, and the rest I learned on the go, right? On the way. And this is something I always told my team as well. If you are waiting to be 100% ready for a role, it's not going to happen because you are 100% ready for a role when you are in the role, not before you start the role, right? So I think this is something I try to always kind of install in my team, that they have this ambition and this willingness to take steps, even if they are not feeling fully ready for it.
Yeah, okay. So spoken earlier about energy, and then we spoke a second ago about curiosity. Is that also something that you feel you've used in to your benefit when you've just gone into the white space of these new roles and just taken the risk?
Absolutely. I think the only way to stay curious is to put yourself in stretch situations. I mean, if you are in your comfort zone, you're killing curiosity. But if you are always in a place where you are stretched and you have to learn in order to be successful, this drives the curiosity, this drives the growth.
What about something that you've had to unlearn? Has there been
Something
anything
I had to
throughout?
unlearn.
Yeah.
I think, one of the things I had to unlearn, and I think unlearned it relatively early, was this belief that your work will speak for itself. And I think it's important to do good work, but it's also extremely important to make the organization realize the value that your work is bringing.
Yeah, okay. And can you give a little bit more depth of that? That's quite an interesting. So you've got to try and do it in a way that you're not seen as though, uh-oh, here comes Yariv again telling everybody how good he is. So it's
So
got to
it's
be
not
that kind of
about,
balance.
yeah, it's not about self-promotion, right? But it is about taking opportunities to present what you're doing. It's about the opportunity to reach out to senior people in the organization and offer your help in projects. For example, if there is something that you're interested in and you see that it can add value in another part of the business, approach that leader and says, I have this idea. Can I work on that for you? Right? So you have to make sure that there is attention to what you're doing. And I'm not saying, don't do your work or just like you have to do both, right? You have to do what you have to do, but you also have to make sure that people realize what you're doing and the value that you bring.
Yeah, love that. And when it comes to the teams that you've created, obviously you've been able to go through some lived experience of kind of what you've done and how you've done it. Have you given advice to the future leaders about designing their own career, I don't know, with purpose and not just career progression? How do you bring that to life when you're speaking to your team?
So the way I approach it is that if you are focusing only on your progression, it's something that I see as limiting. But when you are focusing on a cause, this actually creates momentum and energy in the organization overall that creates opportunities for you to advance. And these opportunities are unlimited because it really is about the fact that you, by approaching these other people and creating those new opportunities, create for yourself a new potential career path. So don't focus on the progression itself, but focusing about driving something with a cause, and this will give the opportunities, right? This creates the opportunity.
Yeah. So the cause and the purpose helps to instill the belief to create and take opportunities.
It not only installs the belief of taking opportunities, but it actually creates new opportunities for you. So let's take an example, right? We talked about how do you make your work also visible. So when you approach another manager out of your department with a suggestion for a project and you do a successful project, if they like the project and they like what you do, they might offer you an opportunity. So let's say I'm in marketing and I did a project for the market access team. And then the head of market access really liked me. So he might open an opportunity for me in market access, right? So it's a completely new career path. Whereas if I'm just focusing on progression, I'm focusing on doing marketing excellent. So I'm kind of keeping myself in the stream of marketing, but I'm not opening additional doors for myself.
Yeah. And then that's where I suppose the opportunity to take on those general management, larger, big P&L roles come from, where it's being able to, you know, be agile, take opportunities in different parts of the business. And did you really encourage your team to do that?
I think I encourage them by also talking about my own story. One of the things I talk about very openly with the team is my transition, right? My transition for BD, which is a kind of a specialty field, into the global product leadership, which is really what opened the path for general management. And as I said, at this moment of the transition, I was not 100% ready to take global leadership. I was maybe 50% ready. But I was willing to take the risk of making this change. I was willing to take the time to learn. I was willing to be humble enough not to say I know everything, but actually to admit that there's a lot that I don't know, right? And through that, do the transition. So, I mean, and of course, this is one transition within pharma, but also the transition between moving from a lawyer into pharma, which is even bigger transition if you want, right? Again, leaving a space where you are very comfortable, you already build credibility, and moving to a new space altogether. So I think my career path, and it's something I talked about very openly to my team and also to the broader organization, is something that I try to role model the mobility between different functions and different roles.
And then obviously you get other role models that then go and do similar things within your organization. So then that kind of compounding effect of risk taking, creating opportunities, then other people see it and go, oh, I could do that too.
I hope so. I mean, I think that, and this is, this goes a little bit to the clone army we talked about in the past, right? At the beginning of the conversation. I think that the moment that you have enough people who are willing to accommodate this diversity, this is the moment when there is an organizational change. My personal view is that at the beginning, you have to a certain level enforce and force this diversity until you create enough people that are willing to enable this diversity.
Fantastic. So thank you. I'm interested to understand more about an optimistic view on the future in your mind. So let's talk about the future of life sciences. What excites you most about the future, be it oncology or biotech?
What really excites me about the future is really the new capabilities that AI brings today with data analytics and what we hope that quantum computing can bring in the future in terms of combinations. Because at the end of the day, the intersection between those two will hopefully create so many new opportunities to discover new drugs, new combinations that will help us hopefully cure many chronic disease or fatal disease like cancer. So really, this is my, I would say, my optimist view for the future. And this is where I hope the advancement will take us.
Yeah, and what about the future of leadership? What's going to define, I suppose, the next generation of leaders within the life sciences?
So I think the future will be unique in the sense that it will help us to select the right leaders. If you think about it today, a lot of the leadership is somehow mediocre, right? Because a lot of the leaders, they are focusing about their ability to analyze data, to be able to do a lot of things that AI is actually doing today. So in the future, you would like to have leaders who are able to, on one hand, harness the new capabilities that AI are bringing in terms of analytics, and on the other hand, to bring the high qualities of real leadership in two aspects. One is the aspect to be able to make decisions based on the data that they are getting from AI. B, to be able to also override AI and have the courage not to go with AI recommendation when they believe that the future is a bit different than what AI is predicting. And the third one is having this human relationship with the teams, which is something that definitely AI cannot do. So if I look at the future, I see leaders that are going to be better than the leaders of today because they will focus really about three elements: the team, decision making, and the ability to override.
Yeah, yeah, because it's going to be really interesting where you're going to have almost like generalist overview of some of the data, and then that leader's going to have to really put in their own lens, i.e., the team, the humans that they've got that they're working with, the purpose, the patient, the situation within the organization. So I think it's a great piece of advice. It's like, you know, you've got both future of life sciences and leadership with an AI lens, both very optimistic. But also I feel that that human element is there. So thank you very much, Yariv. I really enjoyed today's conversation. That was brilliant.
Thank you. Me too. It was really great.